Hey, hello, everybody. This is Purge, and I'm doing another coaching session here. I'm here with Brady. How are you doing today?
Doing good.
All right. What are your first questions here? What kind of stuff do you need to? Do you feel sloppy on?
Well, I guess it's just metagame stuff.
Okay.
I played Dota like way back in the day, like when Ricky Mario like could lay a death ward and stuff like that. And
Yeah, I keep hearing people tell me about this, but I didn't actually play back then. But it sounds like it
yeah,
definitely happened because I've heard so many people tell me about it
yeah.
now.
And you could yeah,
So you
it was
played
great.
that long ago? When did you re-pick up Dota? So like, what is your basic experience other than like a long time ago?
I mean, I definitely like all but the newest heroes. Like I'm familiar with all the items. I'm familiar with. I never played like on a team really
Okay.
professionally or anything like that. I picked up League of Legends about a year ago and played it a lot for the past year, and then Dota 2 kind of came out, and I was ready to move on.
Gotcha.
Um, I come back to Dota, so so now I'm back, and there's a lot of things I don't get very well. So
Do you have any specific examples of questions that I could answer? Like,
yeah, I got a list. So
start it off, man. We'll go down it.
okay, question one is taking towers. Like now, you don't necessarily right when you have the opportunity to take a tower, you don't necessarily want to do it because that's going to destroy your lane. Your lane's going to be like basically in enemy territory the entire time after that, right?
Approximately. It kind of depends. It does depend on your lanes. Oftentimes, what a case will be in a high level game with only one carry, as long as your team is working appropriately, your carry is going to be farming pretty much wherever he wants to, and your teammates will let him. So, if you take a really fast tower, let's say if you're playing Radiant side and you're laning a hard carry on the bot lane, let's say that you have a Chen as well, and you guys decide to take a really fast tower. Yeah, you're right. If you take that tower really quickly, the creep wave is less likely to be near your tower because now like their carry or their hero could basically just keep the creep wave not moving close to their tier 2 tower. And in that sense, yes, it's not going to be safe for your carry, but you also have to look at the fact that you're trading that tower. And that's a huge gold advantage. Every tower you get is a big gold advantage. So
It's
if
true.
in most of I think the most important thing to do in this situation, if you do have a hard carry that wants to farm in that lane, and you decide to take that tower really quickly, you need to make sure that you don't lose any towers, because in a lot of ways, basically, the extra gold that you're getting just from killing the tower can possibly offset a lot of the issues that you're having with having the lane be pushed. And you can always like shift your carry to the mid lane. I mean, assuming you don't push it at like 4 minutes or something else, like your carry can always farm in the mid lane. And something on my computer is reconnecting and disconnecting. It's frustrating. Let's just hope that goes away. Keep getting like the beep. Okay. Did that answer your question properly?
Yeah, I mean, basically, like I mean, if your carry's already gone and he's off jungling or pulling agents or something, then go ahead and take it and get that advantage, get that map control.
Yeah, exactly. Like, if you can take the towers, you should definitely go for it if possible. It does make a big impact on the game for sure. Um, and once again, obviously, after you take one tower, go take some other towers, basically. If you can accomplish that task, then and keep your towers up, then you have a big tower advantage, and then you run into situations like Navi does all the time, which is basically not giving them any towers and taking all their towers, and then it's an easy win because you have all of that gold. You know, you have a 6k gold advantage for your entire team basically, and that's a pipe, that's a mech, and that's a drums of endurance, and that's all these items that you have over their enemy team. It doesn't even matter if you farm that much better than them in the laning process, as long as you take those towers, you are essentially at a huge advantage. So if you can get to that situation, it's definitely really good.
How do you guarantee defense of the? I mean, everyone just constantly has a TP scroll,
Yeah,
basically.
people need to have TP scrolls. The easiest way to do it is just to make sure they don't take stupidly easy towers, like if you forget about your lane and you're somewhere else pushing, and one guy, like some carry, just starts auto-attacking. That's a bad loss of a tower. You got to make sure you don't lose those. You can trade towers as well. Like for example, if your pushing lineup isn't that great, you could do stuff like let him take a tier 1 tower as you take a tier 2 tower. They pay slightly more gold, but most importantly, the map control for trading a 2 for a 1 is worth it. And as you make more and more of those trades, all of a sudden you're going to be threatening towers for Raxes, and at that point, it's still an advantage for you to take those. So basically, just make sure they don't get easy ones. Don't let the creeps just destroy the tower. Make sure that you clear the tower, the creep waves, basically, so that the tower, if a if a wave casually pushes, it's not going to do very much damage. You just don't want those like 2 or 3 creep waves wailing on the tower, because that's a tower that's going to drop by itself. So just having someone like keep an eye on the map and TP, like everybody forgets about it sometimes, unless you're on the pro level and they communicate about that shit. But that's like one of the things they do. Just TP somebody in to clear the creep wave. If they're doing a push, you should probably defend it, most likely. But that's a little bit out of my realm of experience. I don't know. I'm a little unsure about super high metagame. I need to actually learn more stuff like that. So, but that's the easiest thing on a pub level, at least. Just like send somebody and defend it. If they're doing like a 5-man push and you already have an advantage, you should probably defend it, to be honest, because that's gonna show in the team fight.
Yeah. Okay, next question is about pulling. So all I play is pub games pretty much, and my teammates are like, "Oh, we have Anti-Mage and Drow. Oh, we also need Skeleton King," and it's like 4 carries, and then me. And I'm like, "Oh, well, I guess I'll get the Demancer or something." So anyway, so that's okay. I like doing that every once in a while. And so like my lane will get pushed. Say I'm Radiant's bot. My lane will get pushed, and we're up near like the river.
Yep.
So like I need to drop back and pull right so that we get our creeps engagement point basically backs up closer to our tower. That's the whole point of pulling, correct? Well, kind of what happens is.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, what happens is like I'm back there pulling, and I've left my, when I pull, like I need to try to last hit those jungle creeps, right?
Yeah, preferably.
I guess what happens is I'm pulling, and then I'll leave my buddy 2 versus 1, and then they take advantage
and kill him.
They see the opportunity, and they get him. So do I need to just pull him and go back and babysit him again, or what do I need to do?
Ideally, in those situations, let's say, it depends what kind of lane that you're up against. If your ally is doing like a solo anti-mage, as you pull, first of all, let's say, for example, you have a big push going, like you have 2 creep waves or something, or you have multiple range creeps, which basically pushes the lane. If your wave has multiple range creeps, you're going to basically clear out their creep wave very heavily, but once it gets to the tower range, if they're playing at all decently, they will pull the creeps past the tower. At that point, there's absolutely zero reason for any of your allies to stand close to their tower. You're not going to be within EXP range because they're going to pull the creeps past the tower, and therefore they're not going to accomplish anything. At that point, you need to back up. So as long as you're communicating to your allies that you're pulling, which is a good thing, make sure you stack pull, by the way. If you don't stack pull, you're basically just staggering the waves. You'll basically move the wave back and then therefore create a push. So you got to stack before you pull. That'll destroy the entire creep wave that gets pulled into the creeps. And if those creeps die, that's EXP that doesn't go to your enemies. And of course, you can last at the neutrals. And of course, you get EXP by the neutrals. So basically, what's good about it is that, well, basically your ally shouldn't be there. You should tell him, I'm pulling, you need to back up, something like that. It depends on the pub level, obviously. But if he makes that mistake, he makes that mistake. If you tell him and he doesn't do it, and it's a reasonable time to pull, like when your wave is pushing heavily, just go for it. It's not a huge deal. So you should do that. But the important thing to remember is you should basically only be pulling when your anti-mage, let's say you have an anti-mage ally. You want to make sure that he can lane properly. He's not going to get destroyed, basically. and there aren't necessarily opportunities for ganking, I guess. Those are like the main things. Like, you don't want to go pull the lane if your anti-mage is up against like a dual range hero at like level 1 or something. You know, that's not a very smart thing to do because you're basically making your anti-mage become solo. Usually the times when you leave to go pull, if you're not in a tri-lane at least, if you have a tri-lane you can usually send one guy to pull no problem and have the other support just be around to throw fissure if you need to. But if you're not there to support him, you know, he can't get last hits without taking a lot of harass, and if they decide to try to kill him, nobody's going to be there to try to stun one of those two guys and prevent damage to the anti-mage. So really you should only be pulling if the opportunity presents itself, which means anti-mage is laning properly basically, and stuff like that. So
Okay. Actually had that happen, something similar. I was actually the anti-mage.
yeah.
I had a Crystal Maiden partner, and we were against Darkseer and Furion. And I couldn't even get close. I couldn't even really get close to the wave because Darkseer with his little AoE buff that he gives out. I don't remember what it's called. Ion Shell. Sorry. And I couldn't even really get close. Like, I would just take too much damage. And, so I'm just not. I mean, it wasn't really my support's fault, but basically I was on. I mean, they were pushing the lane because of the Iron Shell, and but basically I was fighting our tower for last hits, and I really couldn't.
Yeah, it's kind of tough to do that, but if you get good enough at last hitting, it's not as bad as it could be, but it is definitely not easy for sure. You kind of just have to know how much the tower does. Yeah, in that situation, if they're pushing hard, you never want to pull because you're just going to take more damage on your tower, basically. So I think you probably would have needed some, like, maybe like a Crystal Maiden and like another AoE hero. Even something like a Witch Doctor would have helped, because as a support hero against a pushing lane, you need some kind of counter push, and an Ion Shell with a with Treant spawning is definitely going to push the lane.
So I need to call someone from another lane and say,
Well,
"Get down here! I can't last it."
the problem is that in a normal game, like a captain's draft, you can pick against that kind of stuff. In an all pick game, you know, you're just like praying to God that you have appropriate lanes, basically. Do you remember what your support hero at the time was, if you had a support hero?
Crystal Maiden.
So Crystal Maiden is pretty good counter push for a support hero. If I was playing that Crystal Maiden, basically you would just continue to concern yourself with pulling the creeps past the tower. You'd let the Treants tank, you know, there's not a whole lot you can do about that. I would get one level of ice block and then max out the AoE. The reason I would get the ice block was it works for super long durations on creeps, so whichever one has the Ion Shell, I would ice block that one so that it doesn't get close to you and do damage. And then I would just do AoE basically when appropriate to do AoE damage to the wave, just to make sure that it doesn't survive the tower as long. That's what I would do as a Crystal Maiden to lessen that push. It's not that strong of a push. An early level Nature's Prophet with a Darkseer, that's what I would go for basically. And they're not that aggressive on killing. You know, Darkseer and Nature's Prophet aren't that dangerous, especially against an anti-mage. You shouldn't die to that basically.
Nah, that wasn't.
So that's basically what I would do against that lane as a Crystal Maiden. If he's not playing properly, you guys could lose the tower for sure. And at that point, whatever, all of a sudden you have a big farming range. You're still anti-mage, so you can still blink out of danger, and it's not the end of the world. They take an early advantage. Hopefully you can make that up at some point, but it might be difficult. So
yeah. Okay, next question. Jungling. So, like, I've been doing, you know, I saw your video playing Furion. I've seen lots of Furions. You go, you know, get Ring of Basilius, you grab some mana regen, and you run into the jungle, and so basically what happens is, and this is also happened to me, like, I'm left, you're going to have a disadvantage, unless they have a jungler as well, or a roamer or something. Like, you're going to have a 2 versus 1.
Are you talking about in a lane, like a solo lane on the bottom or something?
Yeah, so like bottom, let's say bottom is 2 versus 1, because I would normally be there, but I'm jungling instead. Yep. And top is, there's 2 people top, and there's the solo in there. So, like, do I need to, like, gauge the 2 versus 1 capability of that guy before I decide to jungle, or do I need to just
It,
what
de-
I need to do in this situation?
it depends on the hero. If he called solo bottom, he should be a solo capable hero. He should be like, a Night Stalker, maybe not a Night Stalker, but like a Zeus, a Queen of Pain, a Viper, a hero that can solo. He shouldn't be soloing if he can't solo, basically. Basically, the best heroes for soloing when they shouldn't be soloing is mid. And that's basically because people have to hit uphill, so any melee hero who sucks at last hitting or it doesn't have very good skills for soloing, basically, that's the best place for them to solo, usually. If he has a bad lane and he calls solo, like, I wouldn't care that much as you. Like, I would be like, whatever, he's going to try to solo some, like, anti-mage against the dual range lane, It's not going to work out. But I'm going to jungle, and you basically, if he plays correctly, he would sacrifice some last hits for just continuously getting EXP, and waits till he has a level advantage, like 5 versus 3 or 6 versus 3 or 4, something like that, and then he would try to get kills, and ideally you would gank at that point. If there's other opportunities, if you're playing like an Enchantress or a Chen, you could definitely gank earlier, because those two heroes have a lot of potential at the early game, because the neutral creeps basically do as much damage as a hero, more or less. So just make sure that if you do play Nature's Prophet that you do gank. I don't know if I ganked that properly in that game, because I was a little on mana the whole time, but you can always do something nice like put a dual lane bottom, and put Nature's Prophet in the jungle, and then try to take an early tower using the Treants. You can do the same thing with like a nature or with an enchant or a Chen. Pull neutrals using your abilities, and then try to take a tower. Something like that can actually work out very effectively. But don't be afraid to gank either. Just like roll up, do a sprout, and let your Queen of Pain or whatever cast her nukes and try to take out one of the squishy guys. As long as you communicate which guy that you want to go on, it should be semi-effective. But make sure that you have possibilities for doing a successful gank before you even attempt it, because otherwise you'll be wasting time and possibly get your team killed.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. Well, what happened to me, I guess, I was Doomringer bottom. I didn't call solo. I just, we needed. I don't know. I grabbed Doomringer, and our friend's like, okay, I'm jungling, and I was like, whatever. So I went down, and they had like it was a pretty rough lane. It was like Vengeful Spirit Slardar,
Okay.
and I would just get chain stunned, and like I died twice. And after like the second time I died, basically 2 versus 1, I would just I don't know. I guess I should have called. Okay, Furion, I need. I need you to come out of jungle. I need you to gank, or I need you to lane with me. I need some protection because they're just gonna kill me over and over, basically. So at that point, like, do I need to just like yell at them or
those lanes are
recognize?
They're really tough to do. If I was in your situation, I would have the same issue. I would get greedy about last hitting, and all of a sudden, if they do it properly, they would chain stun you and orb walk you, possibly kill you. As a Doombringer in that position, I would max Devour first, and I would get a Stout Shield. The reason you get a Stout Shield is because damage block applies before armor reduction, so if Vengeful Spirit uses Wave of Terror, or Sardar uses Amplified Damage, it's going to block damage off of the top before the damage percentage bonus gets increased. But other than that, you should basically just be primarily just devouring offensively, just to like devour, just to get a creep and get your farm that way, get your levels, and just most importantly, don't die. That's the most important thing you can do in a 2v1 situation, especially when they're that able to be aggressive, because if you feed them, you're going to be under-leveled, and they're going to get free farm, and they're going to be getting level kills. If you don't feed them, they'll just be getting free farm and leveling normally. That's the most important thing you can do, is just get your levels, sacrifice some of your CS, wait till a gank comes, and then get aggressive. Because if you play correctly, you can get the level advantage, and all of a sudden they're going to be in a harder situation. You're going to be more likely to be able to just like cast Doom and level death and kill Vengeful Spirit or something like that. You just have to be really, really patient, and just admit the fact that you're not going to get a ton of CS, and at least Doom can eat creeps. Like he can continuously cast Devour, and you probably should just basically not go for last hits until the creeps are within tower range, and Venge Slar would be stupid to dive, basically. Just take the ones that you can get without going within moderate range of Slardar, basically. It's a tough lane either way, but that's your best options.
Okay. So just stand in EXP range, basically.
And yeah, and
And
devour when you can get a chance, but be
yeah.
careful because they could still kill you like that. So
So in the future, if I see a Furion, someone on our team grabs a Furion, I'd be like, all right, are you jungling? If you are, and they say yes, it's like, all right, I need to pick a good 2v1,
exactly.
basically.
Yep, you would have to pick a
All right.
good solo hero who could survive that. I'm looking at examples right now. Viper would kind of work because he has longer range than both of those guys, so he could actually harass them decently. Um, Another good example would be I'm looking at Weaver. Weaver would work. It would be a little iffy, but he would work. You could do something like Queen of Pain, probably. Um, Maybe Lion. Lion might be a little dangerous. Um, Zeus, perhaps. Puck could get the job done, probably. It's a hard lane, dual stun lanes are tough, so pretty much anybody that's normally very survivable, like a Windrunner, could do it probably no problem at all. Windrunner would be really strong. Something like that. A ranged hero who has survivability, which is like Windrunner. Clockwork is also a really good example. Just CS with rockets, and it's not
Yeah.
a big deal. So something like that is a really, really safe solo laner, and against like a chain stun, like a Slardar Venge, that would be really safe, basically.
Okay. Um, okay. Phase boots versus arcane boots. Like I want to get phase boots a lot.
Hmm.
I mean, I play casters a lot. Like I said, I'm like, okay, I'll support, or whatever, or I'll be the, initiator, Sand King, Axe, Clockwork, and I'm getting arcane boots from these guys. Like on casters, like I want to get phase boots a lot, but I'm just like, okay, I don't have any regen. I
Hmm.
gotta have arcane. So like, who do I want to get phase boots on versus arcane as far as
What
casters?
kind of heroes are you talking about? Are you talking about like mega supports or like solos?
Um,
Like
I
solo
guess
casters?
like Venomancer, Pugna, guys like that.
Okay. Um, it kind of depends on the hero. There is a little bit of metagaming going on at the very high levels. I've seen players like Dendi, who's like one of the best solos in the world. He gets phase boots on a lot of heroes for their positioning. It's a good thing because your last hitting is going to be excellent, basically. You're going to be able to do more damage in a team fight. And most importantly, you're going to be able to be positioned correctly, which is so important at super high levels because if you're out of position, you're going to die and it could lose your team a team fight. Um, on Venomancer, I always get arcane boots. I don't like the tank build of Venomancer, which is like treads Basilius with a Vanguard. I think that's inadequate. On a Venomancer, basically, I think you should always go for arcane boots, possible Basilius, and then get either a mech or a pipe with a wand in there,
Okay.
and maybe a bracer if your HP isn't quite high enough. The reason that you get arcane boots on a Venomancer is basically because once you get arcane boots, you're completely mana independent, and his ulti is a pretty big mana cost. So if you get arcane boots, it basically it makes Venomancer happy for the rest of the game. Plus, there is the added advantage of giving arcane to all of your allies. Like you should basically every team should have at least one arcane boots every game, at least. Especially if you have a hero like Slardar on your team who has mana problems in the mid game once he gets Blink Dagger. You need arcane boots. They can help a lot for strength heroes like that, strength casters. So Venomancer, definitely get arcane boots. Pugna, it's a preference thing. You get positioning or damage with phase. You get HP with power treads. You get mana with arcane boots. It kind of depends on your play style. I played Pugna last night. The game I uploaded overnight, actually, I got arcane boots, and that was because we were going for kind of a push strategy. So that's not a bad decision. It kind of just depends on what you wish to do with your hero. I personally, I guess, would primarily go for treads or arcane on Pugna myself, but that's just preference. Pugna has really good base damage already, so I wouldn't feel like you need the damage, and he already has really good movement speed, so that could be made better by phase, but he has really bad strength gain, so personally on Pugna, I would either go arcane or treads. But you could play phase, and I wouldn't scoff at it that much, really. It just kind of comes down to what you feel like doing. You're gonna have to fill those other holes in other ways now. If you get phase on him, like you're gonna definitely need a bottle, or you're definitely gonna need to get like a Yules. Like if you get phase Yules with a bracer on Pugna, I'm not gonna complain about that because you're gonna be filling your int holes. You just need to make sure that you fill them in other ways if you don't fill them with arcane. That's kind of what you basically have to do. Does that make sense? If you don't get arcane boots, you need to fill that other ways. If you don't get a power treads, you need
so
to
if you get if you get phase, you need to have some sort of secondary, some kind of regeneration. Mana regeneration.
Exactly.
I mean,
probably. I mean, some pros go entire games with having nothing more than like bottle and wand because their mana management is so good. But on a pub level, I would say just pick up like a Sobi mask or something and build that into a Yule Scepter eventually. Something like that will make a big impact, especially on Pugna because his int gain is stupidly high. So Sobi mask would go a long way.
Okay. If you phase and you're moving at max move speed, like say Haste Rune or Dark Seer Surge, like can you enhance max movement speed or?
Nope, it is max movement speed for a reason. It's as fast as you can go.
It's max. Okay.
Yep, you can phase through people using phase boots, which is what you would use it for in that situation.
So getting phase on like Dark Seer would be.
I think that's horrible. I see a lot of people doing this in pub games.
Okay.
It's only good because you can run through people, but you have to look at Dark Seer as a hero. His spells are super expensive. I very, very much advocate a Soul Ring on Dark Seer. Like Soul Ring Vanguard is like pretty much almost core, or like a Soul Ring Pipe. You should be getting that almost every game. But Arcane Boots is also really nice. I think Arcane Boots is usually about the best thing you can get on him. I mean, you can look at the fact that you can phase yourself and surge somebody else, which is good. But his base damage is already really high, so last hitting shouldn't be a problem. I just feel like Arcane is a much, much better option considering his mana problems. I really don't like phase boots on Darkseer, personally. I would pretty much rather leave it at regular boots or arcane boots, or maybe treads. I would go treads probably if I was skipping a Vanguard and just going like pipe.
Okay. Team competition. So basically every team I know needs. So I really like the Dota meta game. In League of Legends, the professional level team composition. The professional level team compositions are all very set. Like there's not much contribution at all.
Okay.
Like every game, there's I kind of was exciting seeing the different teams and the different mindsets. Anyway, but so basically you're gonna have your initiator, you're gonna have carry, support, and then a good caster solo. Like tell me about team composition.
Okay. It largely comes down to what you do. There is a lot of outpicking that can be done in Dota. I believe, I don't remember if it was Artstyle who described it this. He was the captain of Navi at the International. He's not playing on any teams right now. I think he got stressed out or something, but I don't remember who it was, but they basically said Dota is actually a drafting game. It's not necessarily the gameplay. If you pick properly or pick better, if you outpick your enemy team, your lanes are going to be advantageous, and if you play correctly past that, you should be able to win the game. So really, Captain's Mode is really about outpicking your lanes against their opponent. You want to look at their picks and you want to say, okay, I know what they're going to do. I want to pick lanes that are going to put me in an advantage, or you will play a strategy that you feel like is going to be able to defeat them. So, for example, if they really, really, like the game we played last night, I don't know if you watched the video yet, but you probably will soon. We basically played a pushing strategy against their carry strategy. They picked up a Spectre second pick, and we're like, okay, obviously they're going for a hard carry lineup, something like that. They basically they have a hard carry. So that means that we could beat their team by doing a pushing strategy, because their hard carry can't contribute for shit in the early game. So if we take a lot of towers and take an early rack, something like that, we're going to probably win the game. So That's one thing that you can basically do. You can predict their strategies. This is also possible with an anti-mage. People value anti-mages very highly, so they pick them up early in their draft, which means that the other team can easily just react to that. If they can pick properly and play slightly different playstyles, they can basically say, oh, you're playing anti-mage, I'm just going to push super hard and destroy you. You know, something like that. Assuming they can execute that correctly, and assuming the other team doesn't pick up heroes that can counter push the anti-mage team, then, you know, that's kind of like what it's all about. It's about drafting, and basically, there's, at a time, usually about 20 heroes that get played on the professional level, even though there's 100. There could be more played, but the heroes are basically just not as strong as the other ones. There are ways they could fit in, like, for example, the best example is Windrunner. Windrunner got very, very, very minor changes ever since she came out in the game. For the longest time, people thought she was a horrible hero, but eventually people started realizing, oh my god, she can stun for 3.5 seconds on 2 heroes. That is so good. And then they started playing her, and ever since then, she hasn't left the metagame. So there's always going to be room for new heroes to come in, especially as Ice Frog gradually buffs certain ones. Like, for example, I think Dragon Knight's going to be heavily seen in the metagame now, not that he isn't already in China, but heroes like Crobolus. I predicted Chaos Knight to be in the metagame as well. Chaos Knight will come back in the metagame once he gets ported into Dota 2. He's an occasional play. We'll probably see Undying casually. You know, stuff like that. I could see Leoric get played a lot more now as well, since he got buffed so much. Stuff like that. It's like, heroes can always shift in and out. It just depends on how the teams want to play them, and how comfortable they are playing them. Do you have any more specific questions past that?
Well, I guess I don't know enough to really... Well, like, when you get into a pub game and it's AP, like, everyone is so hesitant to pick. I guess for that reason, like, it'll get, like, 15 seconds, 10 seconds left, and, like, 2 people out of 10 have picked. I guess because of that reason. They want you to play first so they can try to counter it,
exactly.
I guess.
Or they just don't know what they want to do. But, yeah, counter picking is pretty common in AP.
Yeah.
That's why AP is not balanced at all, because people could pick the most bannable heroes. They could pick a perfect team composition. They could pick a perfect pushing composition that's going to destroy you no matter what. And that's only balanced in captain's mode, because you can predict that and therefore ban out any heroes or counter pick heroes that are good against pushing lineups, stuff like that. In an AP situation, it's not fair or ideal, so it's kind of it's a pub. That's the best way I can explain it.
So basically, in my games, it's basically whatever team has the anti-mage wins.
Okay.
I really hate that guy.
That's understandable.
So so like, what do you do against anti-mage? You say you just push and you try to end it early.
Yeah, you should try to outpush him, or you just get heroes that counter him. You're gonna need good play. The hardest part in pub games playing against anti-mage is you need a lot of coordination to kill him, because if you don't chain stun properly, or if you don't have the right heroes, he can just blink away. And he has spell shield, so it makes it even harder. The best hero counters for anti-mage are basically Rexar, who is Beastmaster, and Lich, probably. Those are probably the 2 best counters to him. Rexar is so good because he has Roar, which is a super long disable. He has Wild Axes, which does part physical, part magical damage, and he just attacks really fast, so him as a ganker is really effective. If you do a gank with like Rexar, Venge, and maybe like another nuker, it's not that hard to kill anti-mage in the early game if he doesn't see you coming. So basically you have to pick off anti-mage early, you have to gank him once or twice, you have to push towers, make sure you have a tower advantage. And in a pub game, unfortunately, there's not really a whole lot you can do about this. You can play Rexar, you can play Beastmaster mid, and you can go gank the anti-mage effectively, but it only does so much, basically. You know, it's only gonna... Ganking him there is only going to do so much. For all you know, your top lane's feeding like crazy, you know? And that's just the problem of a pub game. If you're playing a high-level scrim or something, and you know that your other lanes aren't going to feed because they're not idiots, then you can pick heroes that are going to beat anti-mage. As a whole, he's still really powerful, and he's hard to gank. And if your enemy anti-mage player does pick properly, or get the right items, basically, and get the right skill build, he's going to be hard to stop. There's nothing you can do about it, but there are heroes that you can pick to counter him. So Beastmaster is a good example, because he can roar through Black King Bar. You can figure out which anti-mage is the right one if he's not attacking you in team fights. That's a good thing. The other hero I listed was Lich, lane Lich against the anti-mage lane. Just constantly spam Dark Ritual, or Sacrifice it's called now. That's 1 out of 4 creeps. He doesn't get experience for, he doesn't get gold on. That makes a big impact. And Frost Armor in team fights make a huge impact. That reduces his movement speed by 30 and his attack speed by 20%. So that also makes a big impact. Basically, if somebody picks anti-mage and you just want to beat him, just lane a Lich on the bot lane. Make sure you don't feed. You can dual lane as well. I've seen pro teams do like a Lich and a Priest of the Moon. Really, really good against heroes like anti-mage, because then you have a double range lane plus the sacrifice plus the frost armor. Anti-mage basically can't do shit in that lane. You should at least be able to harass him while he gets CS, and that's really important. Make sure that your lane is stronger than his, so that he can't take advantage of like somebody ganking and him getting free kills while having free farm. So if you really, really hate anti-mage, just pick Lich every time that they pick anti-mage. Lich is like top 4 bannable heroes right now for that reason, because he can shut down pretty much any enemy carry, assuming you don't feed. So I would say pick Lich. That's the easiest way.
Is there some sort of official? Maybe I know there's a lot of room for debate, but is there some sort of like collective Dota tier list and like it's somewhere online? It's like these are the top right now.
There's not any for matchmaking, because matchmaking is still in introduction stages basically, but there are in-house leagues, which is a Dota 1 function basically. In Dota 1 there was no matchmaking. That was just you click a button, you get matched. There was nothing like that. You could join based on how your rankings were. Like after you'd win a game, a database would basically track your settings or track your stats and adjust.
Yeah.
But there are in-house leagues where basically only the best players get vouched, and then they play against each other. So there's really not really anything you can watch for now. But other than like pro player streams, those are obviously some of the best players. Like Dendi, one of the best players in the world, if not the best player, and stuff like that. Just watch pro player streams. Other than that, though, you're just gonna have to be patient. I know for a fact. It's not a fact, but I would basically bet like a shitload of money on it. They will have matchmaking. That will be captain's draft, or that will be captain's mode, or that will be RD, or that will be AP, or it'll be SD. If you don't, do you know what those are?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, so at some point you can just play captain's mode, and I plan to play a shitload of captain's mode when Dota 2 makes it available. I mean, I've been playing RD for like 3 years. I don't need to play RD anymore. I want to be able to not make any lane mistakes, and like playing those kind of modes is really going to impact basically the skill level of a lot of players, I feel like. Especially once you get to like the 80% and greater range of skill level, those players should really just be playing captain's mode, because at that point, if your captain picks correctly, you won't be making lane mistakes, and things will be fair and balanced, basically. If your captain picks correctly. That's kind of where the game should go. So at that point, the only thing I can say is basically we're going to have to hold out. So you're going to have to basically just pick Lich and Beastmaster until we play captain's mode, at which point people can just ban anti-mage. So that's like the only thing I can say to counter anti-mage, or do pushing heroes. But once again, it comes down to coordination. If your team is bad enough to not be able to appropriately coordinate a pushing strat, then you should just pick the easy hero, which is Lich, and just go a lane where anti-mage is and follow him around the map and continue to sacrifice his lane. So
okay, next question. When to get stats?
When to get stats?
When to get stats, yeah, like, I do get stats whenever I have, like, an ability that is not very useful to me at all, like, let's say Lena Inverse, her attack speed, movement speed. I don't pick that up, really. I'm extra damage first, and then I'll just get stats in her ultimate when it comes up. But I see a lot of when you play a lot, you'll grab stats, like, just kind of in between leveling your abilities, and I'm just not sure about the mindset behind it.
Yeah, it just matters on the hero, basically. I mean, a lot of my hero builds are very old. Like, I mean, I've been playing so long that maybe I read a guide 2 years ago about Leoric or something, or like Panda, before Arcane Boots existed, or before Soul Ring existed. And what I would always do would be, I would go, you probably haven't played Panda because he's not in Dota 2, but I would get clap, stats, clap, stats, clap, and then like
the Brewmaster.
yeah, the Brewmaster. And the reason that you got this was because there wasn't a lot of cheap mana regen items in the early game. Now pretty much all pandas will get like Drunken Haze or his passive early levels because they've changed over the years. So some of that is just me being an idiot and not like adjusting to new items basically. And sometimes you lose kills because of it, but it really just kind of comes down to preference. I mean, believe it or not, there's actually a lot of pro players that do change their skill builds quite drastically, possibly between games or between players. Like some players will adamantly love getting, like I've seen some of the best players in the world in Southeast Asia max Geminate first on Weaver, whereas everybody else pretty much maxes Sakuchi first. It just kind of depends on how the game's going. Like for example, the best example is probably Anti-Mage once again in a lane. If nobody's in your lane, do you really need to max out Spell Shield first? Probably not. If you're fighting a really hard lane, you're probably going to want more Spell Shield levels to be survivable. You're not as concerned about having offensive possibilities. It's kind of about the flow of the game, and Dragon Knight is another example of this. Pick up the armor levels. If you're at a hard lane, it's going to give you more regen, more armor, you're going to be less likely to die. It's good for heroes like Dragon Knight, but that's not necessarily stat opinions. That's more like varying your skill build. Yeah, but the same thing basically applies to other heroes. A good example is Ancient Apparition. Some support Ancient Apparition players. They like getting a stat level at 4. This is because Ice Vortex doesn't change a whole lot from level 1 to level 2, and therefore they feel squishy because they're under leveled and under farmed, so it's a little bit better for them to just pick up a stat level because they feel it might make the difference. It's going to give them a little bit more contribution. Another hero I get stats on is Warlock. That's basically because his other abilities aren't fantastic, and in a solo situation, getting more HP is better. It just kind of comes down to preference, basically. Like, if I feel like primarily the best time that I put off stats, or I pick up stats to put off my other skills, it's when I'm underfarmed and I feel squishy enough where I feel like I want to be a little bit more survivable, and putting off that ability is going to be worth it for me. That's basically what I look at it. As a whole, almost all heroes are better. You're better off just to pick up skill levels, but it just depends on the hero, basically.
Okay. Alright. This thing I want to talk about was team fights. Just who to prioritize. What is my mindset? Like, okay, everyone's engaged. It's 5-on-5. So basically, is it just disable / focus their carry? Is that the general mindset? And protect yours?
It very much depends what hero you're playing in the situation, of course, and their farm levels, stuff like that. If we're talking, I mean, like for example, a 50-minute game, their hard carry is just destroying. At that point, you wouldn't necessarily be able to kill him, like an anti-mage with a manta style and a heart. Like, good luck.
Yeah.
But it kind of depends on the game situation. If you're in an early to mid game situation where all the farm is approximately equal, the best heroes to kill immediately are weak supports, or semi carries, or people out of position. Those are like the important ones, or hard carries, I guess, as well. The heroes you should not be trying to burst down at the start of the team fight is anybody that's tanky. So, for example, like a Rexar is not always the best hero to try to kill at the beginning of the team fight. Like a Doombringer, you shouldn't blast all of your nukes on the guy unless he's really out of position, or a Pudge, basically. You don't want to put all your nukes on those guys because they have a pretty good chance of just surviving the burst damage. There isn't usually enough burst damage at all to take out a tank in like 3 seconds. It's not going to happen pretty much. It takes a little bit of auto-attacking. So those kind of heroes you should not be attacking in team fights, especially heroes like Tidehunter. Like, I coached a guy last night who basically in a team fight, he started attacking the Darkseer who had a Vanguard, and he wasn't doing that much damage, and I was like, dude, you're not going to be able to kill this guy. You should always go on these squishy support heroes. Crystal Maiden and Vengeful Spirit, they're really easy to kill, they don't take a lot. You should be disabling hard carries preferably, or like heroes like Lion, heroes who have a lot of spell damage potential in the early game. Okay. And if you can, kill their hard carries, especially in the early game, because if you can kill them in a team fight, they're not going to get kills, they're not going to get experience, stuff like that, so that's important. But your priorities should basically be this. If you have 5 heroes very closely grouped, if one of their guys is completely out of position and he's not a tank hero, go really hard on that guy, just kill him immediately, and then try to force a team fight, because then you're up a hero. If it's a 5-on-5 team fight, try to use your skills properly. Disable hard carries or support heroes who are out of position, who are basically like too far forward or too close to your allies. Disable those guys. Your allies should follow suit if they're playing properly. So that should basically, ideally you'll clear out the carry pretty early with their support heroes, and then from there you can take out the tanky heroes once you have a hero advantage. It's basically like that. But once again, it is kind of just like according to what's going on. You might have to like stun a guy that's about to kill one of your support heroes, something like that. You know, it's just, it takes a long time to learn how to teamfight properly, like a very, very long time. Like I would argue that even like top 20% of the skill base still makes mistakes in teamfights sometimes, which is kind of silly at times. You know, it's like they'll fight 4v5 even though they don't have a 5th hero, even though their carry's out farming. They're like, oh yeah, I want to fight this, you know, something like that. That's mistakes that people still make even at high levels of play. So learning how to teamfight, it's not like an easy answer, you know. It's gonna take a lot of time and practice to get used to.
Well, I guess I had that situation the other day. I was sniper, and like their biggest threats were like they had like a Night Stalker, and he was like building a BKB, so he was a big threat. He also had a lot of HP, and like, you know, I'd be like shooting him over and over, and like, man, it's gonna take forever to kill this guy. Like they weren't focusing me, which was a mistake. But so I'm just like, I tried to shot him like 3 or 4 times. I realized I really wasn't gonna get anywhere, and I kind of, so at that, like when I'm doing that, do I need to switch to their, like, I could kill their Earthshaker in like just a few shots, like 4 or 5 shots.
Oh,
so I just need to switch to their squishies.
Oh yeah, big
even though Night Stalker is like, he's the big damage output, he's the big threat, I need to switch to their squishy targets.
Well, how overfarmed is he compared to you guys? Like, did he have like Treads Black King Bar with an urn or something, or did he have like an Armlet Black King Bar Treads or something?
I'm not sure exactly. I know I wasn't going to kill him anytime soon. Like, well, I was focusing him because he was the threat.
Then that's important, because you can always shave off their damage and stun potential right off the bat. I mean, if you think about, let's mentally calculate how many auto attacks it would have taken for you to kill their entire team. Let's say it would have taken like 300 or 100 or something, right? 400, or I'm sorry, out of 100, maybe like, for all you know, 50 of those is just the Night Stalker. It would have taken you 50 attacks to basically stop how much of their damage potential. Usually it's a lot easier when there's just one hero left over to kill him, to just destroy him with like 3 or 4 heroes. So what would have been better is if you spent, you know, 5 attacks or 10 attacks to kill Earthshaker, all of a sudden they're down a hero. That's one less hero that's going to be throwing a stun every time it's off cooldown, which is really important. That's like the best thing that a support hero can do, is just stay alive until they can continue to stun. Like the most dangerous hero in the game, in a lot of ways in a team fight, is a Lion, or a Lina, or a Leshrac. You just wait for your cooldown, you stun them again. You wait for your cooldown, you stun them again. And that like drastically changes the team fight. So if you can kill heroes like Earthshaker in 5 hits, you should kill him immediately. He should always be focused immediately. Earthshaker, or Vengeful Spirit, or Crystal Maiden, or Lion, just kill them immediately. They're squishy, and they have a lot of stun potential, and they allow heroes like Night Stalker to just right-click a guy until he dies. Okay. So you should definitely kill the Earthshaker first. If you can kill him in 5 shots, man, if you have like good items, always kill those support heroes. Get them out of the way really fast, and then you can better control your fight with the Earthshaker, or I mean with the Night Stalker. Still there? We're having some connection problems. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Sorry, I think you're back now.
Yeah,
yeah, I can.
That's fine, it's understandable. I'm talking to you from across the world, so. Can you hear me now? Alright, well.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's good now.
Okay. It's a lot of delay. Did you catch my last statements about that?
Yeah, basically, focusing disablers, even though they aren't the huge damage output, focusing the squishy disabler.
Yeah, almost always you want to pick them off immediately, unless you have the opportunity to take out a hard carry.
It's going to be more important than their.
We are getting some epic
Okay.
delay.
Okay.
Alright.
Is it better now?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, just a few seconds tops delay, so that's not too bad, I guess. Yeah, if their carry is really out of position, don't be afraid to take him out. Like if Night Stalker is like way in front of his team and you can get a shackle shot off, sure, try to kill him, but don't necessarily like blow all of your AoE cooldowns just to kill one hero, something like that. Like you don't want to use Tidehunter Ravage, stuff like that, you know.
Okay. So like, let's say I'm playing like Venomancer, like, do I need, I mean, like, how do I need to position myself for, like, do I need to try to get in the middle of them, which is going to be certain death, and get a good ulti off on all of them, and then neck everyone, and then basically just explode? Is that, like, what I need to do, or do I need to hang out in the back?
You don't necessarily want to like throw your life away just to get your ultimate off. Venomancer's ulti is really good, but it doesn't like kill everybody, you know? It's a hero that I would say is worth ulting and dying on is like Earthshaker or Tidehunter. If Earthshaker can get a really good ulti off, that's like going to win a team fight. If Tidehunter can get a solid ulti off, that's going to win you a team fight, possibly. Or maybe like Sand King or something. You need like a stupidly good ulti for it to be worth it. Venomancer's is very good, but I wouldn't say it's stupidly good. As a Venomancer, as mostly squishy support hero, especially in the very early game when you just have like a mech, a wand, and an arcane boots, your primary contribution should be like staying alive generally. You should gale a target. Personally, I max wards first on Venomancer. I don't know if you do that build or not, but just getting one gale and one poison sting basically allows you to gale a guy for full slow potential. You can spam wards. You can pop your ulti. I mean, his ulti is a big AoE. What you should do when you're about to ulti is take like a second to walk towards a team, ulti, and then back up again. You don't want to stand in the middle of them because that makes an easy target for them stunning you and attacking you immediately. Your primary concern should be contributing once again, but not sacrificing your life for it unless it like wins the team fight for sure. You shouldn't just gamble. Like if your Echo Flame isn't going to kill them all, like is it really worth it to throw your life away? It's probably not. So as a Venomancer, I'd probably Gale, drop a ward, maybe attack a guy once, and then step towards the team, ulti, and then step out again. Or it's all about like knowing when to be aggressive. If you're about to kill a guy, you can move aggressive, you can go towards the team fight. If you're worried about dying, you back up a little bit. It's like, it's a very, very intricate balance that changes, that really reflects how good your understanding is of the team fight, basically.
Okay. Crystal Maiden's ultimate is like, I would use it, and I would, you know, I basically was like some sort of taunt. I would take all the focus and all the nukes off of my team and die very fast.
Yeah, I like Crystal Maiden's ulti, but I would say it's more gimmicky than not. Some pro players don't even pick it up. It is usable now because the mana cost was decreased a lot, which was very good. So it's actually usable. The best uses of Crystal Maiden's ulti, though, is when you're juking in trees, basically, because you don't need to target anybody. You can basically just activate it. And if you're within trees, people have to walk next to you to get vision. So that's pretty much our best uses for the Crystal Maiden ulti. But as a whole, you also kind of have to know what your enemies have. Do your enemies have stuns ready? Did they use their only stun? Something like that. So for example, like if your ally gets stunned by a Dragon Knight and a Viper, you know that they have no more stuns, so all of a sudden you can just pop your ulti. You can cast your nukes, pop your ulti. It can make a huge impact. It is a very good ulti. It's just easy to get disabled, and you're a squishy hero. So, like you said, it is a taunt effect in a way. If you're in the middle of their entire enemy team, yeah, you're gonna die. But you want to use it in a situation. You don't always have to stand right in the middle. Is the thing, you know. You could be standing at ranged from them. Like I just casted a game, the Purge cast pub number 5. Crystal Maiden used her ulti to barely pick off Doombringer, who's on the very outside, and it worked out. It's like it's just a gamble basically. If you already casted your spells and there's a lot of enemies around you, whatever, turn on your ulti, cross your fingers, maybe you'll get a kill, you know. And at the worst, you'll burn a stun on yourself that could have been on somebody else. So, Crystal Maiden, it's gimmicky, but I say just go for it. And if the situation arises and you want burst damage, just use it.
Okay, I guess my mindset was, and this may have been incorrect, but my mindset was, alright, I've blown my slow, I've already stunned their carry, everything's on cooldown right now. If I can go in there and if I can eat some nukes that would normally go to some R carry, then and die, like I'm not, like my usefulness is kind of hasn't ended definitely. Like I can wait for that stun cooldown again, but I guess I was like, well, I'll just walk in, I'll do some damage, I'll eat some nukes that would normally go toward our carry, and then hopefully, But I guess that's probably not a good mindset to have.
It's an okay mindset, but the problem is that it's not really realistic. Once again, you'd have to just be able to read the situation. You have to say, is this gonna produce something? Like I said with the Earthshaker, you don't want to like try to get solo Earthshaker kills on like a giant team if it's not gonna happen. You have to understand the situation enough to be like, the best example is an Earthshaker without a Blink Dagger. Are they going to let me run in, do an Echo Slam, do a Fissure, do an Enchant Totem without me dying and me maybe getting a kill? The answer is probably not, so it depends on what the situation's like. If they're already diving you and there's like no chance of you getting away, yeah, whatever, go for the ulti. But if it's a situation where like your chances of saving your carry are extremely low, don't throw your life away. Something like that. If it's like a team fight situation where it's an equal team fight and you want to be aggressive with your ulti, that's fine. But you just have to realize when it's appropriate to do that, I guess. I can't really give you like a solid answer. It really, if you showed me a screenshot of like the team fight about to happen and like their items and levels and stuff, I could definitely tell you. But off the top of my head like this, it's hard to say. But generally, heroes like Crystal Maiden should just sit back and wait for your cooldowns and be more concerned about your positioning. If you're auto-attacking or ulting, you're not moving, which is generally more dangerous than a lot of other things you could be doing. So I don't know. If there's a big team fight going on, like tied ultis or something, yeah, pop your ulti because they're going to be disabled for a second and a half and you might get some good damage out. That's kind of what it comes down to, just knowing when it's a good situation and knowing when it's not a good situation. And I can't really just give you the magic word to know, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, I understand. It's a lot about, being a good player. Now, is Black King Bar something that is built on her, or normally you're not going to get enough farm that you can get that?
In a pub game, assuming you actually got farm on Crystal Maiden, Black King Bar is very good, because you can pop off the beast ultis. Black King Bar Blink Dagger is like the wet dream of Crystal Maiden item builds, basically.
Yeah.
But you're most likely not going to get there. In a high-level game where you're warding and things like that, you would be lucky to get something like Treads with a drum and a wand and like a Ghost Scepter would be like, absolutely, oh my god, I can't believe I could afford this. But usually, since you're going to have low gold amounts, you're going to be better off by far just purchasing inexpensive support items that will contribute to your team. So like an urn, you can heal up allies during a push, you can heal yourself during a push, you can use it offensively. Drums of Endurance gives you a lot of good stats. Things like that just like bulk up the Crystal Maiden, make you more likely to contribute without dying, which once again is the ultimate point of a support hero. So those are generally the best items. If you go for a Black King Bar, I would say, let's say you're doing really good, you already have like Treads wand with the drums, I would get the Ogre Axe, and then I would just save your money. Don't buy the Mithril Hammer until your Black King Bar is ready, basically, because the Mithril Hammer is a really expensive item that doesn't contribute for shit, basically, until you get that Black King Bar. Once you get the BKB, the Mithril Hammer is worth it, but before then, it's 24 damage or whatever. That's not something Crystal Maiden needs, basically. So in those situations, I would say just let the gold rise until you get to 2900 and then buy the whole Black King Bar. At that point, it's worth it. And then you can be a lot more aggressive. You can be like, hell yeah, I'm going to ulti in the middle of their team fight, and it's not going to matter. You can drop your Frost Nova, you can do your Ice Block, and then you can run in with your BKB and ulti, and get a good ulti off. Assuming they don't have a ton of physical damage, in which case they can still kill you,
Yeah.
But that would be a situation where I would say go for the BKB. Generally, though, you probably shouldn't have a BKB. You should be warding and buying dust, and upgrading the courier, and making sure you have lots of HP.
I think, like, my standard, like, caster setup is like Arcane Boots and like 2 Braziers. Like, is that
depends on the
good,
hero.
Or is that like not what I want to go for?
On a Crystal Maiden, I would say no. On a Vengeful Spirit, only if you're doing really well. If you're playing a hero like Lina, I would say yes, that's awesome. But that's because it depends on the hero. Lina is a hero who needs a lot of mana pool because she has a lot of spells that have low cooldowns, that she can cycle. A hero like Crystal Maiden doesn't really need a big mana pool because her cooldowns are quite high. I think Ice Block is like 7 seconds or something, or 10 seconds, and Frost Nova is 15, so like, she doesn't do a lot of casting. So a hero like Crystal Maiden just needs more HP, doesn't really need the Arcane Boots, unless nobody else on your team has Arcane Boots, go for it.
Okay.
But as a whole, I would say only get it if it's appropriate for the hero. Heroes like Lion, Arcane is pretty good on, Lena, Arcane is good, stuff like that. But generally the really squishy heroes who don't have a ton of casting potential in a team fight just get Treads or Phase. Most likely Treads though.
Just for HP.
Yeah, yep. Just for the HP pretty much.
So I mean, how much investment do you want to make into those, into like Bracers, Wraithband, Null Talisman, that kind of thing?
As a support hero?
Yeah.
Okay.
Support, or like maybe a caster. Like I played like a solo mid Zeus, and I was like bought all Arcane Boots, and I was like, right, I need some HP. And I kind of grabbed some like Bracer. Anyway.
Kind of comes down to what you're planning to do, basically. You can look at things like item inventory slots are a resource, obviously, and back in the day when there was way less variance in early game items, people just didn't give a shit about how many bracers they got, or null talismans. Like a Crystal Maiden build was like treads, 4 bracers, and a TP scroll, something like that. Like that was normal, just to get the cheapest HP possible. This isn't really the case anymore, though. I would, as a rule of thumb, I would basically say for a fact, never get more than 2 of one of those items. Never get 2 Wraithbands, never get more than 2 Bracers, more than 2 Null Talismans. This used to not be the case, but basically you should look at it like this. One of your 6 item slots should most likely be a Wand. Wand is essentially as good as a Bracer, or a Wraithband, or a Null Talisman. It gives 3 less stats and 3 less damage, which is virtually nothing. And it gives a beast heal. So you should almost always have a wand.
Okay.
Whatever your boots are, you can get a bracer if you want it. Preferably not 2 unless you're playing like a Crystal Maiden or something with crappy items. If you're playing like a carry or a semi-carry, I would say get 1 tops. 1 Wraithband, 1 bracer, or 1 Null Talisman. Unless you're playing like, I guess the exceptions would be a hard carry like a sniper. I think 2 Wraithbands isn't too bad. It's kind of bad, but it's not horrible. It's not ideal for most players, but I think it's not horrible. Or a support hero with bracers. Those are like the 2 examples of heroes I would get the 2 of those stat items. But generally, you're going to run out of spaces at some point, and you're just going to have to sell it, and the efficiency of buying that item will basically decrease as you sell it. So it's usually not worth it to keep multiples, more than 1. I would say, on average, just get 1. And try to plan ahead a little bit. Most heroes, especially int casters, are going to benefit a lot from a Drums of Endurance. Just pick up a Bracer and eventually make that into a Drums. Null Talisman only builds into a Dagon. I hope Ice Frog does something with those items eventually. I think he's going to try to do something with the Wraithband. It used to be part of the Ethereal Blade recipe, but it got removed. Oh yeah, he did. He just added a Basilius Ring addition to it. Awesome. So now in Dota 1, at least for now, you can combine a Basilius, or a Ring of Basilius, with a Wraithband. So there's stuff like that. It's allowing you to get those items and still have them build into something in the mid to late game, which is really important now because there's not enough item slots. There's so many other good small items that it's not acceptable anymore to just pick up 3 Wraithbands, basically. So I would say just get 1, unless it builds into something like a Drums of Endurance, etc. Yeah, just get 1 pretty much is the easiest rule to follow. It's not the best item anyway, so...
I mean, getting those, it's an investment. Like, it's going to give you stats now, but it's going to slow down your...
Yeah, they don't pay off as hard, basically.
Right.
As, like...
That's the problem.
As an urn, or a medallion, or something. Like, an urn is super good for the cost, you know? It's like $8.75 or something. A bracer is like $5.25, so an urn is like 300 more, but still, like... An urn compared to a bracer, it's not even close to the same, you know? It's not even... I mean, it's like 60% better by cost, but I would argue it's like way better than that otherwise. I don't know if we're... Can you still hear me? We're having internet problems, I think.
Okay.
So did you hear all that, or did it drop out?
Yeah, it's kind of chopping out, but yeah, I
Basically,
think
earn is way better than abraser, especially in a team situation. So, um, that's basically why those items are worse. Stuff like earn.
okay, okay. I guess I kind of was. I had like max in my last game. I'm trying to learn how to play Pug. No, it's just not. I don't see.
You are cutting out. For the viewers, he's in China right now, so that's why we're having issues. Good time to stretch and yawn. Am I right? We'll see if he gets back on here. Come on, you can do it, Chinese internet. Chinese internet. Hooray.
Hello?
It works. Alright, so re-ask me your question. I didn't hear any of it. I guess you can't hear me?
I'm sorry, say it again?
Can you re-ask your question? I believe it was about Lifestealer or something. Is that what it was about?
Can you say that again for me?
What was your last question? I didn't hear any of it. You chopped up during it. I guess we're still having internet problems then.
I... Yeah, that tends to happen.
You can type the question
I was
if you
playing Pug in the game. I was just kind of sitting in lane farming.
Uh-huh.
I wasn't getting ganked at all, and I wasn't getting harassed.
Okay.
Can you not hear me?
I heard you were sitting in a lane, not farming, you weren't getting ganked as Pugna. I didn't get a question. I didn't hear any question.
Oh, sorry. And normally I'd kind of get some early HP just so... Oh, well, my question is that if I'm in that situation, and I really skipped any kind of early HP at all, and so I guess I was vulnerable, and I just went for a fast ogre axe, which I later made into a BKB. Anyway, so is that what you want to do if you're just kind of in a farming situation? I'm just gonna go straight from my late game components.
You could definitely do that. It's not bad at all. For example, some players on a hard carry at least, they'll just pick up a vitality booster, saving it for a heart, like 20 minutes later or 15 minutes later or something. It's not bad to buy those items. If you just need to do the math, basically. You say, how much HP is this giving me per gold? And something like an ogre club on a Pugna is not a bad decision at all. Assuming you still have like mana regen and all those other holes to fill. Like, I would maybe get my boots first, and I might pick up a bracer to make into a drums at some point, but as a whole, I think that was a fine decision, especially if you're going to make it into something else later, like a Black King bar. Just picking up the Ogre Axe immediately is going to help out. And it's a similar situation to the Crystal Maiden, basically. You say, well, I want a Black King bar, but is the Mithril Hammer really going to help me out right now? Not really. So just picking up the Ogre Club until you're ready, it's like the same thing. I think that's a fine decision to make, not a big deal, as long as you still have mana regen items.
Yeah. Okay. So almost out of questions. Orb walking. Orb walking is where you basically you fire you fire your attack. Right when your attack releases, you want to basically like move forward as your attack timer is cooling down. you're moving forward, and then you're gaining position in between attacks.
Yes.
Is that
that's very
or
correct.
walking?
Every hero
Okay.
has a attack animation and a casting animation, which is it's like there's if you just right click a hero, there's an entire animation that will go through. There's an attack point though. There's a point where your attack will leave your hero and your
Yeah.
hero will continue to do an animation. That is the part that you need to cancel. So on my screen I'm pulling up Lena Inverse or Slayer here. She has a really long attack animation, but her casting animation is different. So her attack actually leaves way earlier than her animation finishes, so you want to actually move every 0.45 seconds, and then every 0.78 seconds or whatever it is, whichever number. That's like 0.3 seconds that you can move in between attacks, basically. So exactly what you said. If you should basically never stand still between attacks unless you're in a mid to late game situation where you attack so fast that moving isn't actually beneficial, because sometimes that
Okay.
can decrease your attack speed. But in the early game, you can definitely tell bad players by whether or not they move between attacks. Makes a huge impact. You can always get like an extra 1 or 2 attacks in by moving orb walking, basically. Orb walking is technically not the right term for a hero who doesn't have an orb, but I say it as well. I say orb walking. It's the same thing that you would do with like a Drow Ranger or a Huskar or something.
Or Viper, yeah.
Exactly. So it's just attack moving. That's the proper term, especially for anybody who plays StarCraft. It's just attack move, basically.
Okay, that's yeah. I was a little confused by it. And I was like, how are you orb walking with Furion? You know, it's
Yeah,
like, yes,
exactly.
anyway, but no, I understand. I guess I was just making sure. So like on the Dota 2 right now, you can't like. Can I do a search for like professional player names and like find their previously played games, and is that possible right now?
There's a way to do it. I don't know if it works. That's the only thing. You can search by player name. The problem is that a lot of them change their account names a lot. So Dendi doesn't always play under Dendi. He might change it to like that's kind of a Dota culture thing. People like changing their names very regularly because they just don't give a shit, and sometimes they want to hide. You know, they don't want people to realize who they are, just so they can casually play. So it can be difficult. Some things that we'll be able to do in the future is that people will release replays of their personal games, so you can look at things that way if you want to see how they play.
Yeah.
Adding them onto your friends list and watching them that way is probably unlikely. I don't think a lot of them will accept random friend requests. So I think your best bet is you can try doing that. Go check out that stuff. Or you can just watch pro replays, I guess. But other than that, yeah, that's probably your best option. You can see if it works. There's a way to do it. If you go in the watch tab, there is a search options button in the upper right, basically. You'll have to go between live and recent. There's a live and recent tab at the very top below the watch tab. Once you go to the watch tab,
Yeah.
it's recent and live games. You can go to the recent games, and then you can search by player name and find games, but I think the replay function is not working right now. At least it wasn't like 2 or 3 days ago when I checked it. So it might be tough to do right now, but in the future, yes, I'm sure there's going to be a lot more organization, or players will be smart and keep their name the same so everybody knows who they are and they can continue to build their person as a brand. So I think for now it might be a little tough, but it's definitely possible. It's just kind of tough to do. And you could always just install Warcraft 3, man, and just watch all those replays.
Yes. I do have Warcraft 3.
So, yep, there's always that.
I'm doing a search for Purge right now.
Yeah, I don't play that many
Yeah,
games,
see,
though. That's the problem.
Let's see how you did. Where are you at? Did you just play a Lich game?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Looks like you did good.
Yeah, we did pretty well.
4 and 6.
Was it against an anti-mage? I can't remember.
It was you had Anti-Mage on your team.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep. Yeah, I think they had
Okay.
some like we needed we were Dire and we needed a bot solo, and a support. So I was like, all right, I'm playing anti. Or playing Lich. Got some really good chain frost off that game. I remember against the Doombringer. Yeah. Yep. We did pretty good. I basically just did full support there. So yeah, at some point you could basically just watch those games from my perspective, which is a little scary for me because that means people are not going to watch my YouTube videos, but we'll see how that goes in the future.
Well, we'll have the commentary.
That's true.
Right.
That's true. I do offer that. That is important.
So, well, I think that's about all the questions I had.
Okay.
Which was a lot.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm sure the viewers will love this video. So.
Well, I really like your videos, and
Thanks.
I've learned a lot.
Good. I'm glad people can use me to enjoy Dota more. I definitely want it to get bigger, so. Alright, anything else before I head out?
I don't think so.
Alright, thanks man, I appreciate it, and hope everybody enjoys. I'm sure they will. And if you have any more questions, just send me a message, or if you want to set up more coaching or anything like that, just let me know.
Okay.
Alright, and for all of you guys watching on the VOD that I'm sure I'm going to get 18 comments about, people keep like asking me on Twitter, how do I contact you? Guys, just send me a message on YouTube. It's not that hard. Just go on YouTube, send me a message. I read all the messages, and then you can set up coaching if you guys are interested in that. So, alright, thanks for everybody who's watching, and once again, thank you, Brady. And everybody watching on the VOD, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys later.